Hello, Global Theater. My name is Jerry Fielka. Today is May 21, 2023. We want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast, I'm Probably Wrong About Everything. It's an honor and a pleasure today to be here with Sisi Liang. Is that correct way to pronounce it?
Yes. Yes, that's correct.
Sisi, thank you so much for your time. Where are you calling in from?
I'm calling in from New York, in Manhattan.
That is cool. The first question is, what is the best thing for a human being?
Uh, the best thing for a human being is the connection between souls in the flesh, in the body, to experience that.
That is really deep. I like that. What's your favorite form of information, how it comes into you?
Mm, words. Words are always they always speak to me, and also interacting with people, talking.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
live conversation. But
Conversation. Yeah.
when you say words, are you saying printed word or spoken word or electronic word, or one you favor one more particularly?
Mm. I think both printed words and spoken words, they because the spoken words has the sound also. So the
Yeah.
sound also gives me inspiration and information. Um, but I love seeing it on the page too. This is like it's hard to choose between the two.
Right. Did you grow up a reader, one, because your parents told you to read? Two,
Mm,
they did it as an example or on your own?
on my own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you think humans collect or gather information?
Mm, I think that because our souls are here to learn, to grow, to gather experiences, and we're curious, and also out of I think out of necessity,
Yeah.
because if you think about um, so I'm a trained coach by Martha Beck, and so I have come to um, know something about tracking, tracking an animal in a field.
Yeah.
And I recently heard Martha say, the form of the art of tracking could just be the original form of reading and gathering information. And we were tracking animals way back when we needed to gather food, we needed to find food, and that's like, I guess that's just innate for us, that we gather the information on the ground, literally, that will take us to our food.
Right. That's amazing. Just to think that tracks,
Mm-hmm.
say from a deer or a rabbit, was actually a form of us putting symbols together,
Yeah.
like eventually words.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do thoughts create emotions?
Yes. And I feel they kind of interact with each other, but thoughts, I feel thoughts definitely create emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fill in the blank. I don't know what I think until I
Until I move my body.
nice.
I realized that because I do a lot of yoga, so I feel like my body thinks
Yeah.
when I move, and it tells me things, and so I like to think with my whole body.
Yeah. That's two things. Filmmaker I interviewed once, I said, "What's your favorite form of information?" And he said, "Human touch."
Oh, that's good.
And you don't usually think of human touch being information. But
Right.
the other line your answer evoked was James Brown says, I've got a move that tells me what to do.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
like, how does a move tell you what to do? Tell is sort of implying some sort of hearing, but he's saying, I've got a move that tells me what to do. I think it's
And
an amazing. Yeah,
yeah,
go.
and just to take that one step further, that inspires me to also think, um, we are to be moved.
Yeah,
So it's like there's something that is moving us. So like when we are movable, we can be moved.
yeah.
And that is also listening. Um, and like to have something speak through us, and that's, I guess that's also a way of thinking.
Yeah.
It's like channeling almost.
Can humans think without language?
I would say yes. It depends on how you define thinking.
Yeah,
But in the broader sense of thinking, I believe yes, we can think in images, we can think in sound, we can think in all forms, we can think in movement.
yeah.
Yeah.
Chomsky says a language is not just words, it's a culture, a tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is.
Mm.
Sisi, what do you do when language doesn't work? When language breaks down, what do you do?
Mm. I rejoice. And I move my body, and I feel, and I listen to music,
Yeah,
and and all of that. Yeah.
good. Your observations of humans in general, are we more thinking beings or more feeling beings?
We're more feeling beings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You touched on this next. These are two questions by
Mm.
Alan Turing in 1950s. One is thinking a function of the soul?
Mm. It's thinking that it, again, it depends on how you define thinking.
Yeah,
Is thinking the function of the soul? I feel feeling is more the function of the soul. I feel thinking is more function of the mind.
yeah,
But they're intertwined. Part of our right brain is directly connected to consciousness, to the
yeah,
greater consciousness, and so I guess with that part of the brain, that is the function, part of the function of the soul.
yeah. The
Yeah.
second Turing question is, can machines think?
Hmm. Can machines think? I think machines can think. I think there's consciousness in that as well.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
Meaning.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you anticipated this question. Yeah, BSP. Does the brain more detect consciousness or
Hmm.
create it? Like, is consciousness bubbling away and we're more detecting it, or are we more creating it?
I think both. I
Yeah.
think it's a co-creation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
That is a great question. um, hmm. I want to say speed of light. And the reason is at the speed of light, there's no time. And we're in the eternal. And I feel thought is lower than that. is denser than that, and its thoughts are not necessarily in the internal, in the timelessness. So
Yeah.
I would say speed of light.
Beautiful. Audre Lorde, the poet, said you
Yeah.
can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools.
Yeah.
Her colleague Yvonne Rainer responded, said, you can if you expose the tools. What
Mm.
what new tool do you suggest?
What new tools that is not the master's?
Well, this is how it's set up. I open some of these questions with cute quotes. You don't have to apply them unless you want to. So in this case, you know, you can interpret Audre Lorde's words various ways. She
Mm-hmm.
said, you can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools.
Mm-hmm.
Then Yvonne Rainer says, well, you can if you expose the tools. So my question is basically, what tool do you gravitate towards? But I sort of ask it, if you want, you can apply it into the context of the quotes and the
Okay.
word new. Like, what new tool do you suggest can be applied or it doesn't have to be?
Well, especially in recent years, I gravitate toward the tools of the feminine,
Yeah.
and it's the tools of the feminine that is completely different and separate from the patriarchal culture
Yeah.
and what we're trained to do, and I feel those tools are so called for right now, and they're the tools that are actually going to dismantle the master's house, so to
Yeah.
speak. Yeah.
Yeah. What new toy do you suggest?
New toy. Oh, um, there's so many. There could be so many directions to this. Um, any toy that supports the expansion of the feminine,
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
What do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
Mm, well, this is in introspection. Like, have I done enough?
Yeah.
Um, have I done good enough?
Yeah.
And where I am in the journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Marshall McLuhan learned from Ezra Pound, the poet, that
Mm.
artists are the antenna of the race. They're
Mm.
broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, so we might be able to cope with what we don't like about our inventions.
Mm.
So I asked you the question Marshall probed his whole career. Why do we affect even though the artists are broadcasting them to us?
Sorry, you skipped a couple seconds.
Yeah,
Can you repeat the question again?
sure.
Yeah.
Why do humans in general ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though the artists are broadcasting them to us?
Why do we ignore? Because of the ego mind doesn't want to wake up, or doesn't want us to wake up, and doesn't want to be dropped.
Yeah. Do artists have moral obligation?
Hmm. Hmm. On the one hand, yes, but on the other hand, art comes from consciousness. And I guess the more obligation, if any, for an artist would be to honor the full alignment with consciousness and what comes through the art, and
Yeah.
for the art to be true.
Yeah.
I feel like as long as the art is true, I think there's no other more obligation that is more imperative.
Yeah, I noticed in your bio, it really was worded well.
Mm,
Help badass, creative, sensitive souls find deeper truth. I mean,
yeah.
that is a great aspiration. I love that. And the word truth is brought up in a Louis Buñuel quote. I'm for anyone who seeks the truth, but I part ways when they claim they found it.
Mm,
Most 80-90% of people I tell that quote to, they go, that's right. I like that. And one person finally says, no, that's bullshit. If I'm going to seek something, it's because I want to find it and I'm out to find it.
mm,
And so it's a layered quote. He's meaning several things saying that, but the cliche goes, the journey is more important than the destination. Why
mhm.
do we have to seek or name a destination if the journey's more important?
Yeah, we don't need to. So
Yeah.
are you asking me why we do anyway?
Well, yeah, you put it, we don't have to is the answer I was looking for.
Yeah.
Everybody says, well, we have to have a destination because we got to focus. But the flaneurs, psychogeography, which is Joyce in the 20s in Paris, they just sat at coffee houses and didn't do anything. And then they found epiphanies in everydayness. So we don't have to seek truth, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it is a high aspiration and it's good. But like
Yeah.
Louis Buñuel says, if someone claims they found it, I part ways with them.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
Yeah.
And Joyce is, he's so truthful, right? He's
Yeah.
so truthful in his art, in his determination of the true rendering of the human life and the human psyche.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get into Joyce soon. I'm doing a more background questions. This is
Yeah,
fun, and
please.
thank you so much. Are
Yeah.
you more afraid of new ideas or more afraid of old ideas?
Old ideas.
Can you conjure up your earliest memory ever or one of them?
Mm, the earliest memory. I don't know how early they would be, but memories with small animals when I was very little. I had um, a rabbit, a cat, chicks, fish, everything.
Well,
Yeah, loved them.
is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
Mm. Oh, that's a good question. Blessing.
Yeah,
It can be a curse sometimes, but ultimately, even the curse is the blessing.
that's right. Beautiful. Um, Tell me someone within your immediate family, then outside your immediate family, just
Yeah,
briefly,
yeah.
who had an impact on you, kind of like a role model, and what specifically was that impact?
Mm. Well, I think my mom, she did not grow up in a time when education was uh, like really valued or available, um, in a lot of ways. and she's really like, you know, she spent her whole life like sacrificing herself for others, for me, for her family. And I've seen her live her life this way, and it really makes me want to kind of turn the table for her, and to be able to give her what she deserves as a woman and as a mother, in my lifetime. That it really, I feel that gives me a lot of motivation.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Then outside your immediate family, same question.
Who's a role model? Oh, there are so many. I feel, well, Martha Beck is such a role model for me. She's so wise and so strong, even though she doesn't like she has a very like small and feeble body, but there's such strength that I see in her, and in the wisdom, and in the joy, and I feel it really, it makes me feel that I can find my direction, and
Yeah.
I can encounter anything in life and make art out of it, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what does courage mean to you now?
Courage. Courage to me, means that there's a resiliency, and it means to bring joy and fun into things that are even terrifying or scary, and to really just do things without knowing.
Yeah, without knowing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is very courageous and can be scary.
Yeah. That's the work.
Were you raised a particular religion?
No.
Do you pray?
I guess I pray in different ways. I feel like I pray when I move my body, when I
Yeah,
do yoga, when I dance, when I just move my body.
yeah,
And I pray when I say journal. Yeah.
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 If God exists, what would you like God to say to you after you die?
Mm. You did good. You did
Yeah,
everything. You did everything you came here to do. And you recently, I actually, I was in a medicine kind of journey, and I put a card, and the card is basically what I would like God to say to me when I die, and that I have evolved in the way that I'm here to evolve, and I learned all the lessons, and I'm on the next level of my evolution.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow, that's heavy. Really beautiful. Do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
Mm. You know, in the realm of the feminine, it's not duality, so there's no such thing as evil.
Yeah.
And everything the feminine can use. And so I guess evil is a consciousness that expresses itself through people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The question really is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? And I'll set it up. Alan Watts said, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from The Mob and the Samurai, keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Yeah.
JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need an enemy. So it's a lot of thoughts. The basic question is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you respond to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
I don't think I agree. One of the people that I am learning from is her name is Regina Thomashower, and she goes by Mama Gina, and she likes to say agreement is control, and when you're in agreement, you're in control. So even that includes the enemy, right? Like if you're acknowledging the enemy, you're in control.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's like giving power away or empowering the enemy. But if you ever empower the enemy by acknowledging the enemy, then you're also empowering yourself.
Yeah. How would you advise someone to deal with an enemy? Is there any other strategy you would stress?
Deal with the enemy. Embody the enemy.
Yeah. Amazing. In fact, Nassim Taleb said games were created to give non-heroes the illusion of winning. In real life, we don't know who wins or loses, but we can tell who a hero is.
Oh.
Someone responded to that and said, well, villains don't think they're bad. They want control. Heroes want freedom. And Gregory Bateson, the anthropologist, said, if the criminal gets caught, does he go, oh, my criminal skills weren't up to snuff that day? Or does he say, I did something morally or socially wrong? So there's a lot of prompts there, a lot going on. But basically, the question is, does punishment work?
I think punishment works on some level, maybe not on all levels in the space of consciousness, but humans are programmed to run away from pain and pursue pleasure. So like if there's punishment, that will motivate people to turn away from that pain, from that punishment. So on that level, I think it works. But I think on higher levels of consciousness, it goes beyond that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
James Joyce was the first projectionist in Dublin about 100 years ago. He checked out, this is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree? Years later, Faulkner said, sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism. Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?
I think there's something significant when a story, when life is being projected in front of us for us to look at.
Yeah.
There's like that mirroring, and it's, they say myth is medicine, story is the medicine, and where you meet the story, that's your medicine. And
Yeah.
I feel there's value in that.
Yeah. It's beautiful. In fact, Hollis Frampton, the experimental filmmaker, says narrative is born among the animal necessities of the spirit because we're waiting to die. Can you forget to die?
Say that quote again. That is a great quote.
Yeah, narrative is born among the animal necessities of the spirit because we're waiting to die.
Okay. Can I forget to die?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, I said yes, I will. Yes.
There's no right or wrong answers to any of these questions, but that one you got right. But you know, a lot of people say no. Because see, it they're not sure. The question's a little off kilter because they're not sure if you're supposed to take it literally or metaphorically or somewhere in between. It's just words. Just like all words are metaphorical.
Yeah, all words are metaphors.
Yeah, but we do think, well, no, that's a literal question or a metaphorical question. So beautiful.
Yeah.
So tell me briefly, your timeline. I mean, you studied English and math,
Yeah.
and you do this thing called forecast modeling, and I love all this. And then you're a coach.
I'm a coach.
Like, yeah, where's the tipping points? Like when you're going to high school and you go, oh, I want to study English and math, and then you go into finance too. So what's some of the tipping points where your direction led you? That you go, oh, I can do that,
Yeah. Well, until 2020, almost all of my decisions are made based on my need for immigration.
Yeah.
So, but probably not in college when I decided to major in English and math. That was like not. That was just I did it because I wanted it, and and after college, it was like a whole decade of working in fields that could give me a visa and then eventually a green card. So that's what was happening. And I eventually received my extraordinary ability green card. And it was issued on John Lennon's 80th birthday, actually. And it was just, it was on the same day. It was an anniversary also when he won his own deportation case. And so that was really special for me. I feel like if my soul picked a day before I came here, like that's the day, And the tipping point, I guess, a big one is also like when the pandemic started, I decided to go back to Joyce because I did my thesis on Ulysses when I was in college, and I've always been in love with Joyce since my encounter with him in a class. And so when the pandemic started, I was like just fuck everything. I'm doing Joyce.
Yeah.
And so I spent like a whole year just ravishing myself with Joyce, and that changed everything.
Well, let's go back to Joyce for a second.
Yeah.
You picked English to study.
Yeah.
In one of your teachers told you to read a Joyce book. What were you reading before that? A lot. Were you a reader and delving into literature, or was Joyce the kickover where you got into literature?
I was into English literature way before I knew about Joyce.
Right.
So I fell in love with English literature when I was in high school, and I started reading, Keats and Shelley and like poetry, and I was like reciting Shakespeare sonnets, and and all of that. And I felt like I really wanted to go much deeper. And that's why I chose the English major. And I started with Shakespeare because I was real ambitious. Usually you choose poetry or fiction, and I was like, Shakespeare has both.
Yeah.
And then I kind of fell in love with T.S. Eliot, and I was obsessed with The Wasteland, and I was obsessed with the notion of prophecy in The Wasteland, and was Tiresias, and that was the figure that I couldn't get my mind off of. And so I meandered. I was like just going through the process, going on my journey until I encountered Joyce in the class, where we read from his early poetry all the way to Finnegan's Wake. We didn't finish Finnegan's Wake, but we did. It was all about Joyce. There was nobody else in that class, and that's when it all just hit me.
Who was your teacher?
Mark Connor. He's now actually president of Skidmore College, which is really, I'm so happy for him. And he loves Joyce, and he just did that class when I was in my junior year, and yeah, it was intense in the best ways.
So we're going to get into Joyce in a second, but just a couple questions in your pursuits in your career.
Yeah.
Because I like how you're all over the place. Forecast, wine, I'll tell you, my favorite line ever was, "You're a ruckus maker." That's I want to be a ruckus maker. In a
Where did I say that?
In a wayfinder and a pleasure coach. So
yes.
This is a screenwriting teacher told me great art is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Kubrick says the opposite. Great art is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. What role does intention play in your creative process?
I feel my intention tends to be guided.
Yeah.
And to follow my curiosity, because my curiosity is going to take me places even when I don't know where I'm going.
Yeah.
And so that's the intention underneath all intentions I could possibly have.
Yeah. And then Duchamp said there's no art without an audience. How much are you thinking of your, fill in the blank when you're doing, say, like being a forecast model or how much are you thinking of the client? Would you call them client? How much
client.
are you how much are you thinking of your client or the person who's hired you?
I feel, there's a lot of talks about you have to really put your shoes in the audience, and you have to think through your audience. I feel for me, it's more on the other side of the spectrum. It's more about, don't worry about what the world wants, and because the world wants that you be lit up, and I need to follow what lights me up.
Right.
And because that's what the audience wants, because I need to be in my integrity. I need to be in that channel for myself. And that will translate to the audience.
Yeah. Very good. In those two questions in regard to your deep delve into Joyce, what role do you think intention played in his creative process?
What role did intention play in his process?
Yeah.
I feel his intention, first and foremost, is to to be the artist and to worship art or honor art as it's like his spirituality after he found himself not resonating with Catholicism, right? So I feel that's his deepest, or one of the deepest intention, is to kind of find God in art and to express that. And I think he's done it. And he says, I think there's a quote by him where he says, I work so slowly, but like whenever I bend down, I find exactly what I need. Is like he's following that guidance. It's like things will come to him. It's like he's channeling in a way. Things are presenting themselves to him, like the right words, the right phrase, and he just bends down and finds them.
Yeah. It's beautiful. In fact, the second question, Duchamp, there's no role without an audience. How much do you think Joyce thought of his reader when he's writing?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love the book. It's called The Most Dangerous Book by Kevin Liang. I love that book. And I really agree. I feel he convinced me. And I think I agree when he said Joyce wanted readers to read, like he treats readers as if they're lovers. And he wants the readers to read so ardently, so sleeplessly, and so carefully every word. And I feel that he's a very demanding man.
Yeah.
And I feel in that sense that's how he might have had the audience in mind. But on the other hand, I feel like, he's just following that truth in him, that he couldn't care less about what the audience says, because that's his truth, and there's nothing can sway him away. Like it's choiceless for him.
Yeah.
I feel. Yeah.
That's really embracing a contradiction there. He's really both ends of the spectrum. In fact, Pascal, the mathematician philosopher, says in order to understand anything, you have to know this end of the spectrum and that, and everything in between.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Joyce was. He was like a comprehensivist.
Yeah. And if you think about his interactions, he's in his letters with Nora, and he would push her really far in the sexuality, and then he would he would say, please forgive me. And so he's like, he's swaying between, and that is such a great kind of model or metaphor for his relationship with the audience. Like he will push the audience far and then say, like, please forgive me. But that's what I have to do.
That's jujitsu or judo. That word means art and science softly and gently. It's an amazing is push and pull, and I think it's basically yin yang. It's embracing contradiction. That he's very aware of that. And that's what makes him special, is that he doesn't go, woe is me. Frank Zappa says it well. He says, I'm a failure, but I'm not a miserable failure. Joyce had a lot of pride, but he probably knew where. In fact, we met. I'm curious how you got to the Finnegan's Wake New York Zoom. Did you just go to them cold, or was there someone who recommended you, or how did you learn of that group?
I was looking for Finnegan's Wake groups. And I already knew about the Joy Society in New York. So I asked Jonathan.
I see.
I was like, what? Like, and I was looking online and I was like emailing people, but I think I got the emails that are not being manned, and so I didn't hear back for a couple years, and so Jonathan told me about this group. He was like, "This is the email to send."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so let's just stay on the wake for a second, because I know you did your thesis on Ulysses.
Yeah.
How much, it's this kind of stupid question, but how much percentage
Yeah.
do you think Joyce got the wake, and how much percentage do you get the wake? And I know it's just in general, like
Yeah.
from 0 to 100%.
How much percentage do I think Joyce got awake?
Yeah.
Uh,
Understood it, got it, however you want to interpret got it, understand.
I think I would say 80%.
Yeah.
And he famously said, I better translate this soon because in a couple years I may not understand what I wrote.
Yeah.
So, but there's always, I don't think any artist will get their own art 100%, because there's always things that they didn't intend or didn't consciously think of, but because it's kind of encapsulated in the creation that they may not be consciously aware of yet. So I think there's definitely that in what he created.
How much do you get the wake?
How much do I get the wake? Numbers are kind of tricky when it comes to this. I think there's get and there's get. It's like, you can, there's get in the left brain way, the linear understanding.
Yeah.
I think in that sense, I would say, like, I don't want to say more than 20, because
Yeah.
there's like in the linear way, because it's not meant to be understood linearly.
Yeah.
But then there's an understanding of the sound. There's understanding just more
Yeah.
intuitively, and
Yeah.
there's that. I feel like here's how it occurs to me to approach the wake. It's almost like hypnosis. It's like I have to zoom out far enough to get it intuitively somehow,
Yeah.
and to kind of get a big picture of it, and at the same time I need to be zoomed in enough to
Yeah.
run the spellings of the words through my head. So
Yeah.
it's like, it's a very delicate and it's a very precise distance when it comes to the wake. And it feels like at that precise distance, I'm kind of like transfixed in that distance.
Yeah.
And it's like you're hypnotized and alert at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's really well done, because it is like people who ever take psychedelics, it is like tripping when you're really reading Things Wake out loud with a group of people.
Yeah.
It is like the psychedelic experience.
I just came back from a psychedelic trip. So I totally, I
So
get it on a different level now.
it is an amazing thing what the wake does. You don't even need anything. It's at some point you're like, what is going on? And especially because it is so important that it's done with other people out loud.
Yeah.
And you have to look at the text. It's not like Ulysses, you can have it read to you.
Yeah.
But it is good to look at the text. But you even touched on something we talk about, is reading the wake out loud with a group of people is like your second soul or body or consciousness pulls away and watches you read a book. So it's really figuring out what reading books do to us, because what we do with all our inventions is we embrace them, and then we don't understand how they really shape us. And a good example is, I mean, you're a writer, you've written things.
Yeah.
McLuhan says everything we invent extends some humanness. So knife and fork extend our teeth, shutter and a camera extends our eyelid, even maybe religion or philosophy extends our consciousness, non-tangible. What does the writing utensil extend for you? What humanness, whether it's a pen or a keyboard?
Oh, heart.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
What was the name of your thesis on Ulysses? What was it about?
It was about prophecy, and the title is I called it "What Tiresias Missed," and the subtitle is "Prophecy in James Joyce's Ulysses."
Yeah.
So because I was obsessed with the notion of prophecy.
Yeah.
Mm.
So what did you learn post the theses now in your explorations of Joyce that has either opened up new venues in that
Yeah.
subject matter, prophecy?
Yeah. The Einstein time I did not consider. It's when I was doing my thesis, I was really looking at the cyclical nature of time, but there's also which is more profound in and pronounced in Finnegan's Wake. Actually, it's like, you know, Ulysses, you can still see it is mostly still very linear, except for maybe the last chapter. But I would like, you know, the cyclical nature of time doesn't, it's like it circles around, but it doesn't get to the heart of it, and the heart of it is like that timelessness, and that has a lot to do with prophecy. And you know, that's one of the many things that kind of came to me way after I did my thesis.
Wow. And so that's interesting because I learned from Joyce and my studies of Frank Zappa that all times are happening now. It's
Yes. Oh,
all,
yes.
all at onceness.
Yes. Yes.
But at this point, you said you studied all. Did you study the poem, The Holy Office? Do you know that early poem by Joyce?
If you give me the lines, I might.
Yeah, I don't know. It's basically he sort of made fun of his influences in a poem, and it's funny because it's called the Holy Office. But I mean, I'm just a student mainly of the Wake, and then I had to learn about Joyce. I really never really studied much Joyce until I got into the Wake and started our reading group here in Venice 28 years ago. But now I'm in a Ulysses group, which I find fun, but it's still like nothing touches the Wake, in my opinion. But what is the Joyce gestalt for you? Like, is it the entire, like you delved deep into Ulysses, and I don't know your feelings towards the dead and the Dubliners and Portsmouth, but all that, it seems like we met on the ground at Finnegan's Wake. What's the gestalt of Joyce for you?
You mean like holistically, what is Joyce? Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, the end of the dead is just, it just gets me every time. Like, you know, I realize, you know, how beautiful the Dubliner stories are. And actually, the first time I encountered Joyce was a few years before that class. And I knew a few of the Dubliner stories. And I just remember, you know, the phrase in Arabic, which is, you know, it summons my foolish blood. And I just remember this is like when I was still, I think, teenager, and I just really just always remember that phrase. And I just felt like, you know, this author can really say things in a way that, you know, that really brings it. And then I didn't resonate with portrait when I was in college as much, partly because it was such an intense course, and we got onto Ulysses, and it nearly killed me. So all of my blood, sweat, and tears was on Ulysses and onward.
Yeah.
But back in 2020, I actually went back to reread Portrait, and I realized, I was like, oh my God, this is poetry.
Yeah.
And it's just, it really brought me back to Portrait, and a lot of the things that he was treating in there. So I came to love Portrait eventually, and Ulysses is just, that's, I can't choose between Ulysses and Finnegan's Wake. I've done more in Ulysses, but I'm someone who really loves both Ulysses and Finnegan's Wake, and they're different, night and day, literally.
Yep.
And
Literally. That's there's no cliche. That's a McLuhan line. His book is From Cliche to Archetype. That is the archetype. They're different as night and day.
yeah.
But Sisi, this is so fun. I really appreciate you teaching me a lot. And two of my film heroes have this mantra. George Manupelli says, ignore yourself. Jonas Mekas says, there is no self-expression. And Cecil Taylor, the jazz pianist, says, I'm just a vehicle and this stuff just comes through me.
Oh, yeah.
Is art making more self-expression, or more you're a vehicle for whatever technologies, environments, and cultures are dominant?
I think art is, we are the vehicle. I subscribe to that, through which art comes into this world. Yeah. And we are also filters, and because we're the vehicle, we're the filters through which art comes through. So it's like, it's our interpretation as well. So it's a co-creation. It has both elements.
Can art making be egoless?
Yes.
Yeah.
At its finest.
And it's what?
At its finest, yes.
That's amazing, because 80% of people, when I say, can art be egoless, they say no. About a year ago, a woman said, great art is egoless.
Yeah.
And then a couple months ago, a woman said, it has to be egoless. So I love it when you say at its finest, because it is like, how does that become universal? How does someone's art become popular? I mean, we know there's this machine that allows Joyce to be known, and he wasn't just some obscure guy who never got his stuff read.
Yeah.
But there was something that touched so many people. And I remember when these highbrow literature people put out the list of the greatest 100 books.
Yeah.
In USA Today, the newspaper had their headline. It said, Ulysses, greatest book ever? Huh? That was the headline.
Wow.
Which was an amazing thing, because world people, a lot of times they go, well, he wrote the great book Ulysses, but he went too far with Finnegan's Wake. They can't, like, I says, that's the whole point. But McLuhan probed Finnegan's Wake by James Joyce, saying artists dream awake. Like, everyone has these
that's beautiful.
Everybody has this amazing ability to create these scenarios at night while they're sleeping. But artists can also dream awake. Have dreams played a role in your creative process?
When I'm awake or when I'm asleep?
Well, yeah, either way. Well, that's funny, because that's what you actually nailed. What I think about dreams is dreams are to be dreamt. You know,
Yeah.
you can also analyze them, or you can also use them as inspiration, or you can use them to try to suss things out. But the beauty of dreaming is the act of dreaming itself.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, you know, it was a few months ago, I had a dream, and it was in my coaching work, we actually do dream analysis.
I
So
see.
so we know that dream are symbols that represent things that our right brain can give to us,
Yeah.
that our conscious mind may need a little bit of meditation to unravel. And so yeah, so there are times when I have images that come to my dream, or fragments that come to my dream,
Yeah.
that I would wake and I would ponder.
What was the motive of the cave artist?
Define the cave artist.
The cave artists were people who did art way many years ago. So what we have is we have some documentation of cave art
Yeah.
that's preserved. The problem is we don't have any cave dance or cave music documented. We can imagine, but
Yeah.
you know, so cave artists is anyone doing art way before humans actually commodified it, or you know, it's the cave paintings.
Right.
What
Okay.
was their, what's your guess or your hunch? What was their motive?
I would say it's the same motive that any artist is making art now, for real art. And it's the same. It's like it's like consciousness wants to create, and
Yeah.
they're using the bodies of the people like hundreds of thousands of years ago, or today. They're being moved. I think they're being moved
Yeah.
to
I
create
love
the art.
the stress on the word move is amazing, because
Yeah.
McLuhan loves this line: the Balinese have no word for art. They do everything as well as they can.
Oh, that is all art.
That's an amazing. What's
Yeah.
more important, conviction or compromise?
Conviction.
Yeah. You've accomplished a lot rate these three elements in your accomplishments:
Okay.
luck, skill, and ambition. What played the biggest role, the second and the third?
Hmm. I don't think it's luck and skill, but I also don't think it's ambition, because I didn't think it was the ambition. I wouldn't call it ambition. I would call it following my truth. I don't
Yeah,
think that's ambitious. I
yeah,
don't think that's ambitious. Like, I had no real, like, I really didn't have any dreams when I was growing up, but it was just following
yeah,
what's true for me,
yeah.
and doing whatever the heck it takes.
That's beautiful. Is perception reality?
No, it is reality, if as on the level of the perception, but in the grand scheme of things, it is not reality.
Yeah. Lily Tomlin says reality is just a collective hunch. T.S.
That's great.
Yeah, no, back to T.S. Eliot. I'm glad
Yeah.
you brought him up, because he said poetry is outing your inner dialogue. What language is your inner dialogue in?
Joycean.
Wow, that's good.
I don't want to say Wakey's because it's not there yet, but sometimes it does show up as Wakey's, but
Yeah,
mostly Joyce.
we call it Finneganese. Yeah. So what's the function of poetry?
Oh, Oh, I actually addressed, well, I touched on this in my thesis, but that's one aspect of poetry. Poetry is like the medium or the interface between us and that which that is greater than us, I feel. And there's also I did some research on sung speech, and that is has very, very much to do with the notion of prophecy. And one aspect of the prophet is the poet. The poetic sung speech is where something that is greater than us, that is like telling us certain truth about beyond and about this world. And so I think poetry is that maybe it's that veil.
Wow. That's amazing, because Martha Graham said great artists aren't ahead of their times, they are their times.
Oh, and they're in the timelessness, right?
And there's the timelessness, because it's so much what, Joyce has the word email, and there's so much, like, some of the people that have studied the wake with me over the years, they don't like that prophetic thing, like, oh, there's, a reference to chatbot or whatever in the wake. They don't like to go there. They say that's allowed, but you can just go through any page of the wake and find things that are applicable to you personally, or to what's happening in the news. I mean, the day we read, the day Princess Di died, we were reading the wake, and there were 5 direct references to, like, a tunnel, photographers or whatever. They were like, and all of us just went, can you believe? And nobody, you go outside the room and tell people, can you believe this? And they're like, what? You can read anything into anything else. But we were just in awe how sometimes it's just like, whoop, right there, staring at you.
Even when I was researching on Ulysses back in 2020, at one point I realized he's quoting, he has incorporated all of the Western canon and more in one book, right? So he's like quoting backwards, but I realized he's also quoting forward, and because there are things that we can just literally take into our lives today, and it's just as contemporary. And so there's this, I feel like he it seems like he's really got into the eternal, this at the speed of light, where everything is all at once, and that gave him something, I feel.
That's funny, because McLuhan has this great line too. He says, feed back and feed forward. But Louis Bersani studied Mallarmé, the symbolist, had an impact on Joyce, the poets, in Mallarmé especially, because Mallarmé's line I love goes like, don't paint the thing itself, paint the effect it produces. So it's like Beckett saying, the wake isn't a description of a dream. It is a dream.
It is a dream.
Yeah.
Wow.
But Louis Bersani's Mallarmé study has this line, and I'm always trying to figure out what he means, or any thoughts on this line. The very crises which threatens the writing of poetry sustains poetic composition. So, I know the words crises and threatens are a little maybe impactful, but if you get the gist of it, the very crises which threatens the writing poetry sustains poetic composition. Any thoughts on that line?
I feel that, to me, it seems like he's talking about this interaction between the human, the poet, and the inspiration.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that he's saying it's a struggle, there's some friction when the inspiration comes and the poet receives that, and how the poet kind of like gets the inspiration through to him or her and produces that poetry.
Yeah.
It's that process that is the crisis, but
Yeah.
also it sustains the creation of the poetry.
Yeah. That's beautiful because Viola Spolin sort of helped invent improv. And she says, if the audience cannot see your struggle to achieve something, they cannot root for you to achieve it.
Mm.
So it's almost like, do we see Joyce's struggle and are we
Oh,
rooting?
yes.
Yeah. And are we rooting for him to do it, you know?
Yeah. Oh,
That's what I like about the wake.
yeah.
There's a funny pattern, and you should join our other wake groups, the Venice group and the
Yeah.
Texas group.
Yeah,
The
that
Texas
would be
group,
fun.
there was a pattern in the Texas group that was amazing. We do one page for like almost 3 hours. And
Wow.
so we really go deep into it, but
Amazing.
we will start figuring out, well, what does this word mean? What is this to do with the story? Then all of a sudden we're talking about poo-poo caca. Like, why did Joyce go into all this poo-poo caca talk? And then we go into the third part is, why did Joyce do this? You know, so it's like we get lost in the 3 parts constantly. We're varying like the other line I like that Leonard Cohen said is, the only way you can sell a concert is to put yourself at risk. And if you don't do that, people know.
Wow.
So what
Okay.
role does risk play for you?
Oh, I mean, it's everything. I mean, like everything that was worth doing for me in my life so far involves taking risks. And I came to, as a result, I feel like I became very capable of being able to tell which risks to take.
Yeah.
And yeah, everything, you know, the whole reason that I'm here and getting to this point in my life and doing this work is because I took risks.
Yeah. Tell me one major element of your creativeness that stayed the same and one major element that's changed in the years you've been doing it.
I think the one major thing that stayed with me is that somehow let my intuition guide me to the places that are surprising to me.
Yeah.
It's like following, like being the river or following something.
Yeah.
That has stayed with me. And I think I first came in touch with it when I was really when I was starting to work on Joyce for the first time. I felt like it really kind of unveiled itself to me in a way that I may have peeked before through, and it just became more revealed to me in that process. And what's different?
Yeah. What one thing that's changed?
That changed in my creative process?
Yeah.
I doubt less.
Wow.
Yeah. Because I learned to trust that more.
Yeah. Yeah. Moshe Feldenkrais works with healing and movement. He says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength rather than we're normally taught to overcome a weakness.
Right.
Tell me a weakness you turned into a strength.
Mm, a weakness I turn into a strength. It has to do with the creative process when, like, I am not. I guess I don't need to be very systematic, and when I'm in a research process or when I'm in a creative process, like, I may not have a plan at the beginning, and
Yeah.
that a lot of times can present itself, at least to certain other people, as a weakness.
Yeah.
But that's actually how I get started, and it's not about the beginning for me. It's not about how I launch. It's about how I get into it,
Yeah.
and I learned to kind of relish in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We call that the resonating interval, the in-betweenness.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
that's
Beautiful.
McLuhan said the gap is where the action is.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Anger can be a productive emotion when fill in the blank.
When is held in a clean and safe container and released and then used as fuel.
Wow.
And when it's witnessed in a safe container.
Good. I asked my friend, he wrote comedy with Robin Williams. I says, can satire be destructive? He says, that's the job of satire. But if me and you do a cartoon in a certain country and they kill us, some people think dying is destructive. But, Swift compared satire to a mirror in which people could see every face but their own. What's the function of satire?
What's the function of satire? Maybe to provoke our shadow.
Yeah. Have you studied Carl Jung?
Not officially, but I was reading, because he has relations with Joyce, so
Yeah.
sometimes that comes up.
No, I was referencing that word shadow because that comes up. What's the most significant difference between men and women, physical aside?
The significant difference between men and women?
Physical aside, yeah.
Physical aside. Well, I feel the men are, and we're just talking about the stereotypical genders. We're like, I'll just set aside like the spectrum of the genders for now. Like typically, I would say they're meant to be, or anybody who identifies as the masculine, they're beings of the masculine. They're here to embody the divine masculine, and women or people who identify as women or as feminine, they are here to mainly embody the divine feminine, and that's, I feel like, at a deeper level, that's the difference, energetically.
Yeah, what caused matriarchy?
What causes matriarchy?
Yeah, what caused matriarchy? Yeah.
The recognition of the creative power of the feminine.
Yeah. There's a line that goes, you create what you resist. Bob Goldthwait, the comedian, morphed it into you are what you hate. James Joyce said, it's a curious thing how your mind is super saturated with the religion in which you say you disbelieve. And Louis Buñuel said, thank God I'm an atheist. So This line, Sisi, any thoughts on this line? You create what you resist. And I'm not saying you, like one creates
Yeah.
what you resist. Any thoughts on that line?
Yeah, that, not owning the darkness in us, not owning our shadow, creates that which that we disowned.
Yeah.
Joyce also had a line in Ulysses, think you're, what do you say? Think you're escaping and run into yourself.
Oh, you think you're escaping, but you run into yourself. Yeah.
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 I think that's in the Nausicaa episode. And I think he's saying the same thing there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. That's good. How do you find peace of mind?
Oh, how I find peace of mind. Many ways. There are a lot of the feminine technologies that I can use to kind of clean out the things that are not giving me peace, and to surrender.
Yeah. What a great word.
Yeah.
In fact, these are 5 quick Alan Watts questions just off the top of your head in just a couple words.
Yeah.
1, who started it all?
I will go Molly Bloom. I don't know. They don't know, and neither do I. So there you go.
I like that answer. I never get that one. Number 2, are we going to make it?
Yes.
3, where do we put it?
In our bodies.
4, who's cleaning it up?
We are.
5th one is it serious?
I want to answer with Molly's first word, which is MN.
How do you spell that? M-A-A-M?
Just MN. Isn't that her first sound?
Just the letters M and then the letter M?
MN.
Oh, M-N. M-N. That's good.
Yeah.
It's good. Oh, thank you so much. So we got a few more minutes and a few more questions. Thank you so much. This has been really fun.
Yeah. Same here.
If you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
Trust yourself.
Wow. Which way should toilet paper come off the roll, over or under?
Over.
If a publisher was to release your autobiography off the top of your head, what would the title be?
The Grace Hopper's Dream.
The Great Hopeless Dream?
No, The Grace Hopper's Dream.
Oh, The Great Hopper's Dream.
No, The Grace Hopper.
Oh, the Grace Hopper's Dream. My God. Finally, sorry. They want to scent the glue in the binding. What smell?
They want to send the glue in the binding?
Of your autobiography, what smell would it be?
What smell would it be? Fresh cut grass.
I've had that answer. I love that.
Yeah.
Fresh cut grass. That
Yeah.
is so cool. If there was a statue built in your honor, where would you want it displayed and what would it be made of?
Hmm. I would. What comes to mind is in Riverside Park here in New York on the west side.
Yeah.
What would it be made of? Wood.
Yeah.
Trees.
Trees. Good.
Yeah.
Tell me something good you never had and you never want.
Being a top executive in corporations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the cultural shift you see developing today that inspires you?
Women stepping more into sisterhood and sister each other.
Very good. So how has Joyce shaped your behavior? Your delve into James Joyce, how's it shaped your behavior?
How? Well, if it wasn't for Joyce, I probably wouldn't be training as a coach, or I wouldn't have trained as a coach. So he's making me kind of reimagine my whole life and how I live my life.
Yeah.
And he's also been showing me what the feminine really means to a woman in a woman's body, and how to own that and how to understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's sort of funny you say he's making you. It's like, no, I think you're making it happen to yourself, but he's been sort of like I don't know if you want to say vehicle or a vehicle or a channel or something. Like you found him and you were able to utilize what you got from him to help yourself.
To help myself, yes. And
Yeah, you use the word make, sorry. To make yourself. Yeah.
to make myself, I feel this this pull from him, and it feels it also feels like he's making me.
Yeah.
There's that aspect for sure for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's amazing how many people probably feel that. That's very similar.
Yeah.
So
It's
actually,
priceless.
yeah, it's like Anthony Burgess wrote 8 books on Joyce. He said we must now ask some very different questions about the relationship between music and life. What question remains unresolved for you in general? For Sisi, what question remains unresolved?
How to how to be in there's a Rumi quote that I recently been grappling with, and it's about a field, and the poem is called A Great Wagon, and the line is out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there's a field, I will meet you there. And I guess how can we be in that field? and
Yeah.
how to not turn back and how to be in that field.
Yeah. That's really good. That's sort of what McLuhan learned from Joyce is how do you turn a breakdown into a breakthrough? So those two polar, ends, right and left brain, or good and bad, and light and dark. And then there's that in betweenness, like, hey, I'll meet you there, and we'll try to flip a rejection into a redirection, or like, a weakness into a strength. I think Joyce did that so well in three ways.
Oh, yeah.
He's trying to be in the wake. He's trying to be Ibsen. So he creates like a new theatrical experience, reading a book out loud with a group of people. He's going blind. So he flips eye experience, the book, into an ear experience. And then he's trying to be a great singer. And so what does he do? He creates like a new form of rock and roll, or a new form of choir singing, like a hootenanny is what Stephen's Wake is.
Yeah. It's
like
the sound.
It's the sound. I love it when people break into song during the wake and they start singing their lines, and it's like, it's a reading club. And it's like all of a sudden we're in a music class.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There was I remember I was really surprised when I first encountered the wake in that class. Like, we only had 2 weeks, and there was like a chunk that I was reading. I think it was a chunk on Anna Olivia Plurabelle, and I remember I actually have a post-it note on the book still, and like I was reading and I was hearing the sound, and my question I wrote on the post-it note is like, did he write this to make it like the sound of water? Because I heard the sound of water. And then when I was in class, and then my professor actually did say, this was the sound of water, and I was like, I can't believe I got that, or he got that through to me,
he got it through to you before the professor told you that's what you're supposed to think. I already had you had an epiphany in everydayness. That's the Joyce's main thing. How do we find epiphanies in everydayness? Okay, 2 more, we're out of here. Thank you so much. Thornton Wilder, who was a huge Wakean. In 1928, he said, art is confession. Art is the secret told. But art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time. You've laid your cards on the table for over 90 minutes. I'm not insinuating you haven't already answered this. What's it really all about for you?
What's it really all about for me? I think it goes back to that deeper truth. It's like finding that truth and having that, being rooted in that, on all my expressions, and all I can really do.
Beautiful. I so much agree. And what gives you the most optimism?
Sisterhood with women.
Sisi, this has been such a pleasure. The first question is, what's the best thing for a human being? And Wilhelm Reich said the best thing for a human being is another human being. In the last question, question was, what gives you the most optimism? That's what they asked Groucho Marx at the end of his life, and he said, other people. So it's sure been fun spending this time with another person, especially you. Thank you for all your enlightening thoughts. I really learned a lot. And like I said, I hope you join in on our other Finnegan's Wake groups, and
Yeah, I'd love to.
our Venice Ulysses group meets almost every other Thursday also. So
Amazing.
we'd love to have your input. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
we'll stay in touch.
I'm going to hit the end broadcast button, but I hope this never ends and we can keep talking forever and ever.
Same here.
All at onceness.
Okay. Yeah. Timelessness.
Yes. Bye.
Okay, bye.